But first, Marco Rubio, the vice chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, has handed down a new report on the origins of COVID-19, 2 years in the making. It concludes that COVID likely leaked from the Wuhan Institute of Virology after a bio-containment accident in the second half of 2019. The 240-plus page report is detailed and thorough. There's no smoking gun, but it's a compelling case
that begins to outline the things that were going on in China in August and September of 2019. For example, they had a drill at one of their airports where they specifically said, we are drilling against a novel COVID pandemic, coronavirus, using terminology that wasn't even familiar to anybody until March or February of the next year. You start to see all sorts of internal communications within the Chinese government and researchers about the urgent need for biosecurity measures at both the Wuhan Institute of Virology and the Wuhan Institute of Health. You begin to add a mountain of circumstantial evidence. No single piece by itself is determinative, but you put it all together, and the fact that the Chinese to date have not yet produced the animal, show us the animal that was the originator of this. They've yet to do that, almost 3 years after, and I think that it becomes really compelling.
Rubio's report draws on the investigative work we did over the course of 2 years for my book, What Really Happened in Wuhan, and for our Sky News documentary. It includes our revelation that a Chinese military virologist, Zhou Yusen, invented the first vaccine for COVID-19 in February 2020, only 35 days after China admitted publicly the virus was infectious. It also includes the fact that Zhou Yusen then died sometime in late May or early June 2020 under unusual and mysterious circumstances. Marco Rubio's report states, Zhou's work appears to be an important piece of the puzzle that we seek to solve, and his untimely and mysterious death only underscores the likelihood that he played a role in or otherwise had direct knowledge of how the outbreak of SARS-CoV-2 began. Senator Rubio's report also mentions our work looking at the little-known Wuhan Institute of Virology coronavirus researcher Ben Hu. Ben Hu began a study in January 2019 examining the pathogenicity of 2 new bat SARS-related coronaviruses to transgenic mice expressing human ACE2 receptors. Rubio's report states, the significance of these reports is to show that the WIV's research was broadly funded by the PRC central authorities and had even received honours from them, and that in 2019, the Wuhan Institute of Virology was actively working on at least 2 projects involving undisclosed SARS-related bat coronaviruses that were artificially adapting to infect human cells. His report states that for this and other reasons, it would be difficult for the central leadership in Beijing to distance itself from a serious research-related incident at the WIV were such an incident to occur. Rubio's report again draws on our reporting about the links between virologists at the Wuhan lab and the People's Liberation Army's Academy of Medical Military Sciences, and how Major General Chen Wei went into the Wuhan Institute of Virology and took control of operations at the time of the outbreak. He also includes our reporting on the Wuhan frontline doctors treating patients in November 2019, how high schools started cancelling classes because of the virus as early as that month, and that Chinese dissident Wei Jingsheng first heard about the new coronavirus in October 2019. Rubio's staff re-interviewed Wei, who gave his first ever interview for our documentary.
Yes, he did say it was coronavirus.
How did he know about it?
Well, in the, among the Chinese diaspora, there have been talks about it. And Wei, being who he is, tend to be the recipients of many information. People seek him out.
This is an important report that's made headlines. Now, as a journalist, I hate making stories about me. It's got nothing to do with me. But I also strongly believe, that you have to stand up to bullies. And perhaps one of the best parts of Marco Rubio's report is that he hits out at The Guardian for trying to discredit our journalism. His report says they were wrong. In May 2021, I wrote an article about a Chinese military paper or book that discussed weaponizing coronaviruses. I wrote that this document, prepared by Chinese military scientists, had been examined by the State Department in the United States during their investigation into the origins of COVID-19. The Guardian's Amanda Mead penned an entire article trying to discredit me and this book. She quoted Bob Carr and an analyst called James Palmer, among others. She wrote, Markson's story has been criticised as misleading and alarmist by China analysts. The Sydney Morning Herald's Anthony Galloway also tried to bring us down with an article headlined, How a Book on Amazon Inspired the Latest COVID Conspiracy. They love that conspiracy word. And then ABC host Paul Barry backed them all in with an entire 8-minute segment attacking me.
Let's catch the latest coronavirus scare story from News Corp's Sharri Markson.
Virus warfare in China files. Exclusive.
In that front-page scoop in the Weekend Australian 10 days ago, Markson revealed the contents of a document, quote, obtained by the US State Department as it conducted an investigation into the origins of COVID-19. And its message was chilling. As Markson told her Sky audience on Sunday,
It describes SARS coronaviruses as heralding, and I quote, a new era of genetic weapons. It says they can be artificially manipulated into an emerging human disease virus, weaponized and unleashed in a way never seen before.
yes, it was scary stuff, as was Markson's notorious Wuhan lab story in the telly last year. Former Foreign Minister Bob Carr, who is a friend of China, was just as damning, telling The Guardian,
This is a case study in a species of journalism we can baptise as China panic. It's fed a view that Australia is threatened and war is imminent.
Markson, meanwhile, is unrepentant and defiant, saying she won't lose a moment's sleep over what Bob Carr thinks, and telling Media Watch,
I have interviewed multiple high-level specialists whose actual job is biological weapons compliance, and they say this document by 18 military scientists is highly significant, with its instructions on how to unleash a bioweapon attack. There are no factual errors in my story. Media Watch is 100% wrong on this, just like you were a year ago when you falsely reported that COVID-19 could not have a laboratory origin. Will you apologise and publish a correction?
Well, finally, 2 years later, this high-level Marco Rubio report says the critics of this Chinese military document, this book, are wrong and their criticisms were ill-considered. Rubio's report states, and I quote, when Australian journalist Sharri Markson reported on this book in 2021, some media outlets criticised her coverage as sensationalistic. To be clear, Senator Rubio's staff read the original Chinese text and did not rely on Markson's reporting for the analysis that appears here. They went on to say The Guardian, in its criticism of Markson's reporting, cited James Palmer, who dismissed the PLA work as having a strong conspiratorial bent. The Guardian claimed the book had supposedly been discredited, but by whom The Guardian did not say. It goes on to say the book bears the imprimatur of the PLA, the People Liberations Army Academy of Medical and Military Sciences, and was written and edited by a board of PLA specialists. The book was not a sensationalist title written for easy consumption by a general audience hungry for a compelling military conspiracy. Rather, it is a dense and technical work that was published by an official PLA press, not a commercial outlet looking to turn a profit. In this regard, Palmer's dismissal of the book is ill-considered. Remember, this report is from the Vice Chair of the Intelligence Committee, and his team of investigative staff have access to classified intelligence. So how about a correction now, Paul Barry? Marco Rubio says it's stunning to think there were so many critics of the lab leak theory, given how much evidence there is to support the fact that COVID-19 most likely was linked to the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
I can't say for certainty that Fauci knew that it was a lab accident, but I think he had to have known that it was a real possibility because they knew the kind of research that was going on over there. They knew the problems this place had, and they didn't just deny it. They smeared. They went out and actively and openly looked to smear and destroy any scientist and anyone who would dare raise that proposition. We need to remember that there was a time in the United States of America where if you went on Facebook or you went on Twitter and you said that this was a lab accident, they would take down your post and potentially close your account. Something that today is at least a 50-50 proposition in the minds of almost any serious observer. There was a time in America where you would be wiped out. They would close your account and they would take down your post if you dared to say that. You were a conspiracy theorist. And all that was fed by many in the scientific community like Dr. Fauci.